So, this is Underground Outreach with, we got Buckshot and T-Dubs.
Hi, I'm T-Dubs.
So, it's a great day to be a native of South Florida, huh?
Yeah, sure.
I'm
Florida
just
man.
using this as a segue to bring up my Florida man story for the day. We've got I was leaving for work first thing this morning. I go to open the door and it gets pushed open by some guy posted up on my doorstep. Just hanging out. I'm talking to him. He's just mumbling. And I don't know. The whole thing, I ended up having to call the cops to get the guy off because he was kind of incoherent. And as I was leaving for work, getting a card from the officer, be like, hey, this is why I'm late. It's a great day to be a Floridian.
Sounds like he had a really good Friday night.
Yeah, no, it definitely kept going. He was, 6 a.m., still lit.
Well, I don't really have anything. I don't have any kind of fun story like that. I just went to work, did my thing, came back, did this. Florida man.
Getting shit done.
Yeah,
So,
there you go.
On the topic of getting it done, I kind of wanted to introduce our guest for today. All of his music has pretty much made its way into my rotation, and here we go. I'll let him introduce himself. This is Dominic DeLaney, and here he is.
Hi guys, how you doing?
Hey, how are you, Dominic?
Doing good. I'm in the middle of a pretty busy weekend as far as shows go. I have 3 back-to-backs, so right now I'm somewhere near Fort Lauderdale at the best place to go on any sort of music adventure, a Starbucks.
Oh, there you go. Get your caffeine fix for the day?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a frequent flyer card.
Well, you said that you have a show today, huh?
I do, yeah. I'm actually playing down. I don't believe I'm in Fort Lauderdale. I think I'm actually in Plantation. There's a new place down here called Rock and Brews that I'll be playing at tonight. I think it's their first weekend doing live music, so I'm excited to be kind of. I think somebody played there last night, so I think I'm technically the second person to play there. But yeah, very, very excited. I try and always play new places. I enjoy. I enjoy traveling in general, but even traveling in interstate is a lot of fun. So just trying to stay busy.
That's awesome. Speaking of traveling, do you are getting ready to head out on a tour, I hear.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, so I got a couple coming up. The Intentions tour is an acoustic tour with my friend Andy Siren, who is an amazing songwriter, amazing performer. She's sort of from the Jupiter, Florida area. And then after that tour, I'm home for a couple weeks, and then I go back on tour with my friends, The Shake. And that's going to be a full East Coast tour. We're going all the way up to Portland, Maine, and back. And that's going to be a blast. I love touring with both of these camps, as we kind of refer to them. They're great company. They're amazing musicians, and good. It's good company on the road for sure.
So were the Shake involved with? I guess it would be the For Life album.
So the Shake. So funnily enough, the lead singer of the Shake is named Ricky, and around the time the Shake was starting is when Ricky and I met, and he told me he was a drummer, and I was like, that's great, I need a drummer. And we started jamming the first album. This was right around the time when the pandemic was easing up a little bit and we were able to start doing shows again. And it just kind of happened that he became my drummer and the Shake became a thing around the same time. And it just made sense to work together. At the time too, I was still doing a lot of solo shows, where now it's kind of an equal balance of solo and full band shows. But yeah, they were definitely involved, really from the word go.
Gotcha. And just little side note for me, which one do you? I assume it's kind of mood based or vibe based, so to say. But do you prefer solo or working with the band?
It's definitely a tough one. Solo is great. Like this year, I've been doing the Amtrak tours where I've traveled the country on train and stuff like that. And doing that full band seems like it would just kind of get to a point of pointlessness. Like
It
let's
would
get in a
be
van.
so much effort, it wouldn't be worth the
It
squeeze.
would, exactly. It would be ridiculous. So, there's certain things that I can get away with solo versus full band.
Hmm.
But we just had an amazing past couple full band shows that, we had a punk rock flea market in Lake Worth. And, that right after the set, I was like, that's in the top 3 shows I've ever played in my life. And it's definitely because, my drummer Ricky and my bass player Rocky are such talented musicians that,
Hmm.
uh, it is really amazing to do the full band shows.
I'd have to say that I mean, I don't know. Acoustic sets are kind of more like intimate, in a way. But when you have a full band show, the energy is, at least as a fan, from a fan's perspective, it's insane. And I can only imagine because you guys are up there feeding off of everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, going back to that last show that we just had at Punk Rock Flea Market, by the last song, uh, I kind of knew that the crowd was on our side, and we brought up a friend to play guitar, and I was kind of just front manning it, running around with the microphone, and I realized like I'm so out of gas, like I'm out of breath. I don't know how I'm still really moving around, but it was just because everybody else was still moving around. It's there's that Nirvana interview where they're like stoned and they're like, "We're playing catch with some vibes, man." That's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is, and yeah, that's hard to do solo. It does
Hmm.
happen. It does happen sometimes. Like I had an amazing. I ended up on the first Amtrak tour I did. I ended up playing at Yale University, just like on a whim. Like I was walking through New Haven, Connecticut, and kind of literally stumbled into a show, and that was kind of just as energetic as the full band show can be. So it does happen, but it's definitely a little trickier.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean with the living off of the like energy of other people around you. It like the first time I played a really big show, like the biggest show I actually played, it wasn't really anything much. I think I was in 8th grade, but it wasn't just performing. It became like playing a game with the people you were playing with almost. It's more interactive than that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's I try not to use this analogy too much because it makes it seem like you're viewing the performance as some sort of manipulation. But uh, there's a point when you know that you kind of have your hook in the crowd. You can kind of tug them, and you can do whatever you want. Whether that be like starting a mosh pit or having a sing along or anything like that. There's a point that
Lighters in the sky.
right. And there's a moment in the performance where you know that you have them. There will always be more moments where you don't have them,
Hmm.
and those are humbling for sure. But when you have them, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it also kind of reinforces the like when you're not getting it and then you finally do get it, it reinforces that this hard work is worth something. I get a payoff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that
absolutely,
feeling of people going along with it and it's just what you expect it to be is something that's definitely worth the work.
definitely. And I've had a couple songs. And one of the earlier songs that I still play is about how I broke my finger, and like for instance, one of my friends who's mentioned in that song is now kind of our resident photographer. And things like that, where we go now and we have a group of people that sing the words to that song,
Hmm.
and that's always cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, actually, I guess speaking of songs, I've been really, really, really into the For Life album. Right when I'm doing a lot of show prep and stuff, and coming across that, and I feel, oh man, fuck Florida. That's been like on my playlist. We were listening to that actually before we even started the show.
Yeah, it's legitimately made its way into my playlist. I left Florida for LA for a while, lived out over in Oregon and Montana, and the whole time I'm there, I'm just kind of how you finish the song with I'm a Floridian
Yeah,
and
yeah.
something basically along those lines. So, what was writing that song like for you, or what was the process with that?
So it was a song that kind of it took a while to it was a song that took a lot longer than some of my other songs. I think I had the first verse first, and that's a true story about how I think it was my 23rd birthday. I had a friend at the time who we were kind of living a rowdy lifestyle at that point, and he said, "What do you want to do for your 23rd birthday?" And I said, "I want White Castle, but not the burgers that they're selling at like Publix and stuff. Like I want to go to a White Castle." And at the time, the closest White Castle to Florida was in Nashville, Tennessee. And that's how we spent my birthday was pretty much drinking a whole bunch and going to White Castle.
And that's a
Um,
drive.
it was ridiculous. To the point where we were calling the White Castle. We're like, we're gonna be there in 70 hours, and they're kind of like, great, you know.
Cool.
Yeah, we would like text or we were tweeting to White Castle, and White Castle did actually send us. They sent me like a T-shirt. They sent me like a keychain thing. Um, but yeah, it was. I mean, it was fun, but it was an absolute disaster. And then about a year after that's when I started kind of doing DIY tours, and it just started to become a thing where in every city, I kind of had to explain like being from Florida and why like in Chicago I had no idea which way was north, because in Florida I could be like, all right, well the beach is that way, so that's east,
Beach is that
and
way,
I
bro.
could figure that exactly. So I
That
can
way.
like figure it out. Whereas, yeah, in like Chicago, I had no idea where I was. I was like, which way do I look? And so we did "Fuck Florida" on for life as the acoustic track,
Hmm.
and
Well,
it has since turned into it's actually we used to close with "For Life," but it's since stolen the closing spot where we do a big full band "Fuck Florida," and that is actually coming out August 11th, which I'm very excited for.
That's
okay.
awesome.
August 11th.
Yeah.
I mean, I like for life. I like the play on words there. Like, not doing this for a living. This is for life kind of thing. Um,
Yeah. Well, and so like that directly came from I'm a giant Frank Turner fan.
mhm.
And Frank's kind of he's the main reason why like I count my shows. Like for instance, tonight is going to be 379, I
Whoa.
believe. Um Frank's already in the thousands, and then if you look back at like the old blues players, like your BB
Huh.
Kings, they're in.
Yeah.
That's where I get asked a lot, like, am I trying to beat something? The answer is no. I kind of just like to keep track, but because you'll never get close to those guys like BB King and all the old blues players. But
Oh yeah. The
so Frank had an album that came out last year. I think it was last year. It was called FTHC, and it's his ninth album, and it was the first one that went number one. And that was something that for me, as an independent musician, looking at that, as somebody who has a career that I admire, still had to do 9 albums to get a number one. Um, and I think it was probably in an interview that he was doing where he said something along the lines of he's in this for life, and I was like, I like that. I'm gonna steal that. And I wrote for life. There were "Fuck Florida," I think might have been before "For Life," um, but "For Life" was kind of the one that was like, okay, this isn't just gonna be a bunch of singles. This is gonna be an album.
I get that. The just listening to like Fuck Florida, the sound and tone and all of that reminds me a lot of Anti-Flag, but like it also gave me American Idiot by Green Day vibes. Just the plotting and the layout and the kind of the meshing of the themes, because how it sort of blends throughout the entire album. So it
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, it's funny because when the album came out, I was very cautious about um, having it labeled as a recovery album. Like at the time, I
Hmm.
had gotten freshly sober, um, and I don't know why, but at the time, I was very conscious about telling people it's not a recovery album. It's not a recovery album. Almost a year detached from it, I can look back and be like, oh, that was a recovery album. Um, and looking at trying to put myself into a third, an objective standpoint, looking back at that album, I can see a complete story of somebody who's in unfamiliar territory in their life and working through that. And that was definitely something I wanted to come through on that album, and I'm happy that it does.
Well, recovery is not just about like this has to be what I'm doing. It's about the recovery. It's about the building your life back, building a life you want,
The
something that's worth.
process.
Yeah, it's worth something that's worth keeping and doing the work, even though it's not easy. So it's more
Yeah,
about the secondary stuff too.
yeah, absolutely. And I had a with Ricky and Rocky, my bandmates, coming home from, because when I got sober, I got like sober. Like I went away. I left Florida for a little bit and just kind of kept my head down. And when I came back, Ricky and Rocky, I showed them the collection of songs. And I was like, I don't know, if we could do an album, maybe we'll trim it down to 4 and just do an EP. And Ricky and Rocky were the kind of, they produced it, they mastered it, mixed it, all that type of stuff. So they were a great support system to be there and be able to kind of be as vulnerable as possible when it came to sharing the songs as raw as they were and being like, what can we build on from this? And so having that connection with those guys definitely made, I think the significant difference between For Life and my first album.
Well, that makes definitely a lot of sense. Like I've heard a lot of people like their relationships tend to change once they get into recovery.
Yeah.
At least the people that stick with it or are really happy and content with it, not just white knuckling it or riding their pink cloud. It's
Yeah.
more so like they've changed their life and they've made it something that they want more than what they didn't want before.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that, entertainment or the music industry or whatever you want to call it, nightlife, we work in an industry where typically alcohol is more readily available than food.
Yeah.
Definitely.
When we play a club, they don't hand us dinner tickets; they hand us drink tickets.
Exactly.
And there's an amazing book. It's called Bodies, Life and Death in Music by an English writer named Ian Winwood, and it's all about mental health in the music industry. And for me, the question that it raised was sort of a chicken and the egg type scenario of what came first. Did the industry attract these people with certain mental health problems, or is this industry a breeding ground for these mental health problems? And I don't necessarily know if there's a right answer. I think it's a combination of both. But one of the things that I've noticed since getting sober is how many other people in the music industry are also sober. That, at the time when I was still drinking and using drugs and stuff, would have never crossed my mind to be like, oh, hey, that guy's not doing this and he's still here.
Yeah.
So that was, that's something that has opened up a whole new avenue for us. When I say us, I don't drink, Rocky doesn't drink, and Ricky doesn't drink either. And the other guys in the shake, they don't really drink. They don't have drinking problems, I should say. So it's just very interesting seeing how, as we've sort of matured, our existence in a music scene has also matured. It's become more of an actual thing that, like, I can tell people, like, yes, this is my job. I'm not just getting hammered and then going to the next place to get hammered.
Right. I mean, to the average fan, right, it seems like, I don't know, when I was younger, I would think, oh, man, going on tour, right, that would be a huge, it just seems like a giant party in a way. But and that's just from the outside looking in. But, I mean, I guess it's, and also, I don't know, like you were saying, alcohol and music, sometimes they go, like, hand in hand,
They are as an
Well,
industry.
absolutely. I mean, as somebody who goes to, when we show up to a venue for load-in time, if there's a green room, typically there's a fridge in there, and if that beer gets drank, there is somebody whose job it is to go put more beer in that fridge, you know. But if they had a bag of chips and we finished that, they wouldn't get us a new bag of chips, you know. Um, it's very interesting, and there's been times where um, it does affect the venue that you can host certain events at. You know, we had an event where we had a good turnout of people, but it was to a brewery, and a lot of the people who came weren't really that interested in drinking at noon or whatever it was, you know. And that kind of affects your business dealings with that company. You know, if the only commodity that they have to offer is alcohol, that's kind of the crowd they're only going to be able to attract.
Right.
So there are things like that. But going to the other side of that, you know, there's stuff like small coffee shops or bookstores or indie record shops that might have a bit of a different view on what they want as a business model, and that opens up some really cool doors where you get to do more intimate shows with some storytelling and stuff like that.
So I was kind of explaining a little bit before about the history of like why we wanted to get the show going. Me myself, I was in treatment for alcohol, so I don't drink anymore. I go to like the kava places, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I know you're anybody in Florida kind of drives by them and you'll see them and go, huh. And they have a lot of live music there, you know. So I was sitting in there one night, and I figured, why not? You know, why not have like why wouldn't we want to talk to anybody? You know, any of these artists coming in. So I kind of understand where you're coming from. In the smaller venues, usually these places are small; they're not real big, and they get a pretty big turnout of people too.
I
And
think, well, the small venues are so important to the ecosystem that is like independent music. Like for instance, on tour, there's a venue that they're like, "Hey, we're so sorry, but the maximum capacity is 70." And I was like, "That's amazing. Like that, don't be sorry at all, because 70 people is the last thing you want to do when you're touring is book a 200 capacity venue and 20 people come."
yeah,
And so that physical small place forces it to be intimate, you know. And those types of shows, I think, also force you to kind of open up more as a performer. You have to be willing to be vulnerable to be intimate.
yeah. You know,
I mean, if you got nothing else to talk about, T-Dubs, I'm a gear nerd. I'm huge into all that aspect of it,
I knew
and
that's
I
where we
was
were
just
going.
curious. What mainly did you use for recording and writing and all that? Actually, separately, recording and writing, uh, and while you were just recording versus touring.
Hmm. Okay. So writing it always starts on the acoustic.
Mm-hmm.
That has since
Is that
become
the
a little
Epiphone?
more.
Not to
Yeah,
enter.
so I have a pair of Epiphone hummingbirds,
Mm-hmm.
which are my go-to. They're actually back here somewhere. Those are my go-to, both for performing, for touring, recording, and writing. Mainly because of how well they can take a beating. I can throw them on a plane; they'll be okay.
Yep.
If they break, it's only a $400 guitar.
Exactly.
It's not a $4,000 guitar. You know, so they sound really good out of the box. The only upgrade I do to them, I think I switched the pickups in the black one that I have.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just Fishman pickups. Um, and for a while, I was really obsessed with getting it was a Fishman or a Spectrum DI box.
Mm-hmm.
I've since abandoned that, and I've been able to run through a different EQ and all that type of stuff for a live sound. But for recording, it was just direct from the guitar. We'd mic it up and we'd do some blending of those tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And then so that's kind of the basics for the solo stuff. For the full band thing, I've been on a quest for a specific, guitar sound, and I think I might have found it just recently. For guitars, I've got a Telecaster that I ripped the pickups out of and stuck humbuckers in. Then I have a Telecaster that I built that has a single coil in the bridge and a humbucker in the neck. And then I did also pick up a Squire
That was
Mustang.
my first guitar.
So they just released, Squire came out with a new series called the Sonic series, and it's replacing the Bullet series, which is kind of what people, I think, in our age group kind of grew up with. The Bullet Strat was everybody's first guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're getting rid of that entire series and have upgraded it to the Sonic series. And it's been about a 30-year time span since they've introduced a new entry level series, and in that time, the ability to create a quality, affordable guitar is just amazing. The Mustangs, I think it was 190 or something like that when I bought it. And I got it and it was my number one guitar. I really like, I don't have any buzz issues. It has a short scale neck, so it's really fun to do squeals and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, those cheaper guitars have been improved a lot. And then for amp, originally I had, for our setup specifically for touring, it's so much easier for us to, we run an our in-ear system through a Zoom. I think it's a Zoom L20. And so we run everything through the Zoom before we send it to the house. So
Gotcha.
I had a Line 6 Catalyst that I was essentially just using as a giant DI box, and running that into the Zoom. That thing ended up, I just couldn't get a sound I liked out of it. I finally got rid of it. And what I have now is I'm actually going with like an ampless setup. I have a Marshall amp simulator on my pedal board, and that just runs a DI out to the house. So as of right now, I don't even travel with an amplifier, and I'm very, very happy with that.
Well, that makes definitely solo traveling easier.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But
just be able to
even
pick
with
up
a band,
my pedal board.
It's just that much less gear you have to carry.
Yeah, more space in the van. That's prime real estate.
I actually did have another question for you. Now, I know the For Life album that came out in 2022, right? Last year.
Last September, yeah.
Yep. Do you have anything in the works? So we have anything to look for in the future, near
Definitely.
or distant?
Yeah, definitely. So Fuck Florida, the full band version, that's coming out on the 11th, and that is kind of the bridge that we're building in between For Life and album 3. Because I think stylistically, album 3 looks like it's going to be a lot heavier than anything else I've done. I would say that it's probably about 70% done. We are planning on a vinyl release, and so I just got For Life on vinyl not too long ago, and knowing what I know now, just about how vinyls are laid out, how much time you can fit on a vinyl and stuff like that, we're about 70% there. So it just needs a little bit more on the actual record, and then we'll be recording it, and we'll probably have a release date soon for that sometime next year.
Awesome.
All right. I mean, we're just about out of time here, but I'm definitely looking forward to hoping if we can get you on here again, or maybe after you promo your new album, something like that.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Anytime at all. Like I said, I'll be on the road, and if you want to see some real craziness, we should schedule one of these when I'm with the Shake. Those guys are just loose cannons.
Definitely will
That would
do.
be awesome.
I saw one of your interviews in I think it was an RV or something like that, with the door completely off.
Yeah,
gone.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say, yeah, I'm sitting in a car right now, but this is nowhere near as chaotic as it normally is. That was on a tour that we're releasing on a YouTube channel called Live Music Community. That's actually starting Monday. We have episodes from that entire tour. But yeah, I was doing an interview, and we were driving down the interstate, and the door to the RV flew open. And then we almost lost our camera guy because he went to go close it.
No.
Yeah. It was wild. It's funny too because like that was caught on video, but that happened probably like 4 or 5 other times too. it was. We ended up just bolting the thing shut, and we would just all get out one door.
Hey, if it works.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Where are you playing again? So that way, anybody that's watching, if they're in the area, they can swing by.
Yeah, tonight it's in Plantation. It's called Rock and Brews. And then tomorrow night I'm doing a benefit show for a woman named Judith White, who is battling cancer at the moment. We're doing a benefit show in Lake Park at the Brew House. And that's just a donation-based show, so anybody can come. Nobody's being turned away.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that's about all we have time for, so we're not going to hold you any longer. You have a good show tonight, and everybody that's watching, stay frosty.
Have a good night, everyone.